Welcome, everybody, as you're coming in. Sorry, that was very loud. Sorry. Um, Grab some coffee. Feel free to look around at the tables. We will talk about them in a little bit. We're going to start in about 5 minutes. I will see if I can startle people less by not talking so loudly. I just encourage people to find a seat. There'll be more time to look at all the treasures later. You can grab a seat, and we'll start in a few minutes, or a minute. All right, well, thank you all for coming this morning. My name is Jeff Crawford. I'm Communications Manager here at the Chapel of the Cross. If I don't know you, I'd like to know you. But it's great to be here with you all. One of the great interests of my time here since I've been here is exploring our archives, which was once downstairs. It is no longer. We'll talk about that in a bit. The archives has been shepherded and stewarded by Michael McVall, a parishioner who was a professor at UNC, and he has watched over the archives for decades. He has recently stepped down, and Michael Hardy, if you have not read the email, has taken over. And so I encourage everybody. Michael Hardy is in Spain or coming back from Spain, so I know he is very sad to miss this, but Michael would love to hear from everybody. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well, but you can reach him at archives@thechapelofthecross.org. He's very excited to take it on, and it's a big time of transition in our archives. So concurrent with that, we have a wonderful cohort of master students from the UNC School of Information and Library Sciences who have come to do an internship here this spring in rehousing our archives, and they have explored it as well and have some interesting things to share with you. And they're going to talk some about the process that they had in what they've been doing. So I'm going to hand it off to Jacob, Maddie, and Isabella, who wants to start.
Thank you, Jeff. Hi, everybody. As Jeff said, we'll be giving a little presentation about all of our work at this archive. So my name is Isabella Walker. I have Maddie Blewett with me and Jacob Weineck. We also have a fourth member, Jed, who unfortunately could not be here today, but he has done some amazing work alongside of us. All right. To give a little background to who we are and why we're here, as Jeff said, we are all second-year library science master students at UNC, and we all have a focus on or an interest in archives. One of the requirements to earn our degree is to complete a capstone project or a practicum project where we work with a group or an organization to apply all the theory that we've learned in school to a practical environment. So we started working on this project in fall of last year, around October, I think, and we've collaborated a lot with Jeff, who is, again, our project sponsor. So when we first began the project, Jeff introduced us to the original archive room, which again was on that first floor or the bottom floor. So all of the church's archival materials or records were held in this small room with a closet in the corner, also containing records in boxes. And although you can't quite tell from this picture up here, there are all kinds of materials, photographs, correspondence, financial records, old brochures and newsletters, and many, many other things. All right, so when we first started familiarizing ourselves with the space and with the archive, we knew that we had to identify any issues we saw, and we had to come up with a game plan to address them. So we completed an inventory of the materials. We looked through all 66 boxes to make note of the dates, material types, and subjects that we noticed. Again, there were many types of records, so in addition to things like photos, there are newspapers, scrapbooks, CDs, DVDs, and other audiovisual forms too. So one issue we encountered was a lack of description for the records. Collections of records typically come with something called a finding aid, which just helps users find records that are relevant to their research through description. And although there was no finding aid here at this archive, it did come with a great guide created by Michael McVaugh, and that helped us understand how the materials were categorized and showed us where we could find materials broadly. So this guide provided a really good starting point for us to create our own finding aid for the archive, which Jacob will talk a little bit more about later. Preservation concerns were also an issue for the archive, and Maddie will get into the details about that. But I can tell you that the original room had sunlight coming through. And so sunlight coming through harms the materials, it causes fading, so we decided to move it to a room on the second floor with no windows, no sunlight, and it also has more room for all the materials we have. And here's just a look at the original finding aid or the original guide created by Michael McVaugh. And again, this provided a really good starting point for us to create our own finding aid. But for now, I'm going to hand it off to Maddie to talk about preservation.
All right. Thank you, Isabella. Ooh, not anywhere near as close as I should have been. All right, so as we were looking through the materials, we found some preservation concerns that we had to start assessing immediately upon getting to them because we couldn't let things sit in the state that some of them were in. So what you can see above is some paper clips that had rusted a little bit onto paper, which causes obviously some staining, which can make it harder to read materials. We also found lots of rubber bands that had been disintegrating from heat, from sunlight, from sitting. And they kind of melt to paper, which can make it really hard to get them apart. Yeah. We also found some materials that were covered in mold and mildew, and that's a couple of examples of that. One is a binder that has just a really thick layer of fuzzy mold on it, and so we have to separate those materials out, dry them out to keep it from growing onto other items. And then this is a picture scrapbook that had mildewed and started to disintegrate, so we also have to separate that out, dry it out, to try and keep it safe. And we had found a lot of photos that were framed. The frames had lots of mildew, because it was trapping moisture in them. And so we had to remove them from the frames. The frames were often also broken, sharp edges, so we had to kind of try to get them out and then hold them separately and refolder them. Okay, so, and that brings us to how we updated it. So like I said, we removed things out of things that were broken, so removing things out of their broken frames, refoldering them in acid-free paper and moving them to acid-free boxes, which you'll see in just a moment, and creating that new finding aid that Jacob's going to pick up and talk about a bit. And moving it to our new archive room. So this is all of us moving the materials to the new room. This room doesn't have any windows, so it doesn't have sunlight getting in on the materials. You can see that we have all of these boxes that we are moving all the materials into and moving them into acid-free folders to keep them from disintegrating over time, because paper all has acid in it, and also folders that you keep paper in also has acid in it, and those things start to disintegrate the actual materials. So moving them into acid-free materials was really important to keep them for a very long time. Yeah, and then while we do that, we are organizing them to create the new finding aid. Yeah, and I will pass this on to Jacob.
All right. So these are some of the treasures that we've discovered over the last 8 months in the archive. To begin, we have 2 photos of the church. The first is a photo of the church exterior from 1898. You can see that ivy has grown onto the building and taken over it. The second is a photo of the church interior, but it's undated. Part of the fun about archives is that you can solve mysteries, such as when this photo was taken and by who. Here are 2 photographs of people at the church. The first is a photo of Father John Husk posing in a walkway, assumedly taken sometime in the 1880s when he was rector. Below is the back of the photo with some helpful writing. The second is a photo of the Godspell musical cast from 1981. There is an abundance of photos in the archive capturing community joy, which has been rewarding to preserve. Here are 2 documents about Reverend Pauli Murray's first sermon as an ordained Episcopal priest. The first is a message from Reverend Peter James Lee to the Raleigh News and Observer with details of the occasion. The second is a transcript of Reverend Murray's sermon titled Healing and Reconciliation. She describes January 1st, 1977 as the start of the Second American Revolution. Here are 2 examples of more temporary documents. The first is a human bingo game from a 1994 Episcopal Youth Community event. Some boxes include ever smoked a cigar, plays chess regularly, and sleeps on a waterbed. The second is an ABC sale poster from an unknown year. Old posters like this speak to the evolution of graphic design and church operations. You can find these treasures in the archive by using the new finding aid we are creating. In short, the finding aid categorizes and describes materials. It is organized in series, sub-series, boxes, and folders, making it easy to explore, discover, and access materials. Also, the finding aid is a digital document, which allows for quick searching. We hope the archive will be used by a variety of people for a variety of goals. The archive is for church members, youth, and older adults in the community. and local and global researchers. It can be used for genealogy, research projects, or simply the joy of exploring local history. We have a large archive on our hands, but little is known about the stories that it holds, which is where the community steps in. So please feel free to ask us any questions you have about the archive, and also please explore all the treasures that we have on these two tables. We'll be hanging around the tables, so chat with us. And we also have some treasures that you can take home with you because there were so many duplicates. Please take them. Thank you so much.
Yes, please give them a round of applause. They've been wonderful to work with. Yeah, that's right. That's right. I wanted to say a couple more things. First of all, again, Michael Hardy is the parish archivist now, and he is looking forward to hearing from you all. If you want to look at things right now, things are being refolded and rehoused, but we hope to soon be able to have a discoverable archive that people could, interact with and submit papers to. So Michael Hardy, again, his email address is archives@thechapelofthecross.org. Michael McVall has written a wonderful book chronicling the first parish register of the Chapel of the Cross. We have that available for sale. If you're interested in that, you can email me at communications@thechapelofthecross.org. And I'm also collecting oral history going forward. So if you have some stories, I'd love to sit down with you and or a conversation partner and talk about that. Anything else? The giveaways? I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? Okay, here we go. Let me get the other microphone. For the people at home.
Thank you, and thank all four of you, for your work on this. This is really something that was needed, and we appreciate it. Sometime you can tell us what kind of sponsor and supervisor Jeff really was, but that's not my question. Can you talk a little bit about the photographs? How many approximately, what time periods approximately, what overall condition, what needs to be done the most?
There are a lot of different photographs from a lot of different time periods. I'm trying to remember, I don't know if we have a date on some of the earliest ones, but we have ones that we think might be tintypes, which are some of the very earliest accessible photographs. We have some actually that you can look at today that are from the 80s and 90s as well, that you can even just look through here that are preserved in scrapbooks. There's just a ton of them. I don't know if we have an estimate on the number. If either of you, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, a lot. And the preservation of some of them is really simple. Some of them are already, like I said, in scrapbooks. We are kind of going through them pretty soon, and some of them are not in great condition. Like I said, they're still in frames. We've moved almost all of them except for one that's in a very pesky, broken frame out of those, and they'll be kept separately in a nice little separate box for those materials. Thank you.
Thank you again for your presentation and your work. It's fascinating. Approximately what date are tintypes? I'm not familiar with that. Is that Civil War era or after? Or? Yeah.
I believe they're early 1800s, I think is around when they're from. Does that sound? There are different there's I think three different, there's daguerreotypes, tintypes, and the third one ambrotypes, I think they are, and I don't know what dates they are all in, because they kind of overlap, and it's more about what was accessible at the time. So tintypes are some of the earliest ones that regular people could start to afford, still probably more on the wealthy side. But yeah, I don't know exactly. Mid to 1800s? Okay, thank you.
A comment. Thank you very much for this. This has been very interesting. one possibility for the photographs is to maybe hold a series of events of parishioners and sort of do a crowdsource to try to identify the photographs, because there are some of us who've been around far too long, and we might even recognize some of the people in those photographs. The second question I have is that 60 Minutes did a segment on the Pauli Murray event, and we used to have a copy of the DVD, I think, or a videotape, and I'd love to get another one, and I'm wondering if perhaps it might be possible to duplicate those if they're still around.
Is that the Charles Kuralt? We do have a copy of that, so we can talk about that. And I don't know if we'd have to look into sharing of it, but we do have it, and I believe we've shown it at events. Yes. Just saw it at EYC? Well, I know it is on our YouTube, but it's a secret. Yeah, it is. Yeah, we do have a copy of it, and it's an amazing piece that we do like to share. Does it? Oh, here we go. Oh, come back to you. I'm not used to jaunting around with a microphone.
I was just curious if we have an audio archive. The reason I ask is that there is a CD of Dr. Quinn's Compline from Sunday nights at 9:30 back in the day, and I was wondering if that was included by any chance. Thank you.
I think I can answer that we do have an audio archive, and we do have a lot of Dr. Quinn that I've seen in there. So we're working on, eventually we will transfer all those to digital media. And by the way, I think the barn raising of people looking through photos and identifying will be sorely needed. There are so many pictures.
We've talked a bit about having those events, or not us, because we will be ending our time working with this soon. But we've talked to Jeff about having events where people can look through. We don't have time to look through all of the DVDs, CDs, floppy disks that are in the archive. So hopefully having volunteers that might want to join in with us or not with us, with all of you, to watch those videos, tell us what is on them, what needs to be preserved, and also to look through photos and identify people. The ones that are out today, mostly I think, are all identified, but if you see something, please let us know.
So again, thank you for your hard work here. And I had a couple of questions. The first one was, how much longer are you as a group working on this project?
Yeah, so we are all second years. We're graduating, hopefully, in May. So I think we'll be working until the last week of class, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So my other question was about turning it into a digital archive, and it sounds like that is the plan from what you said. Can you tell us more about the plans for that?
Yes. There are still, Michael Hardy and I'm working with Michael Hardy on what to do. We're also talking with about getting another cohort for digital archiving. We are trying to discern, it seems to taste about how much our archives need to be digitized or not, but we have a large amount of digital materials that need to be archived that we have on our staff server. So that needs to be stored and archived just like the physical archive would be. Some of that could be printed out as well and become a paper archive. So it's kind of hitting from both streams, but that's kind of the next era, is getting our digital archives created and safe, so that our work server can be cleared off and used for work and not for archival purposes. Anybody else? Everybody's got questions. I love it.
I wanted to add my thanks too for the hard work and the incredible job you're doing at cataloging and I think as importantly preserving. I had a question related to an upcoming celebration of our 100th anniversary, and I'm just curious if as you were doing this work you were mindful or attentive to that, and are there some things that we would all like to hear about and see and know that come from that founding year?
So we found, materials from the very start of the church. And I think all of it is going to come into play when the anniversary happens. There's plenty of materials from that time period, photographs, correspondence between people in the church and outside of the church. There's even binders. I know there's one very large binder dedicated to the 150th anniversary of the church. And so even as we're approaching this new anniversary, there's already been anniversaries past, and those are documented. So I think it'll be really exciting to compile all of the previous anniversaries and the work that previous parishioners, church staff, archivists have done, and pass that on to Michael Hardy and any volunteers who work in the archive. Like we were saying, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for anybody in the community to volunteer and help with this. Identifying people, places, times, student volunteers especially. I think it's a great experience for young people to get into the archive, learn about their local history. I think there's a lot of good opportunity for that.
Another thing I should mention is we are working, some of our former archive is now at Wilson Library in their special collections. That includes the big blueprints of the church from 1925. And they're on these huge, delicate sheets of paper, giant. And you may have seen, if you've looked at the annual report or seen some of the stuff, we went in last summer and got them scanned. So you can go look at them online. So we're working on thinking about, as a next step, how to link those things from Wilson to a finding aid of digital resources, because there's a lot of interesting stuff in there too. Some interesting stuff about Chapel Hill, even. There's maps of Chapel Hill. There's maps of the trees and like a landscaping map from, I think, the 20s. So really interesting stuff that we found that is worth sharing.
I think, first of all, thank you very much. Well done. And we wish you were staying on, of course. And good luck in your careers. But I wonder, because all of us have our own family archives, you might say, of many photograph albums or boxes of photographs and so on. Can you suggest where we might get some of these acid-free boxes, and particularly photo albums? I'm noticing my children's pictures from 50 years ago are indeed fading.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a good thing that this might inspire people to pay attention to the way that they're taking care of their family heritage, because that's what it's done for me the past 2 years being in the library science program. It's made me really rethink how I'm taking care of my own family history and just how important that is, with my grandparents, parents, cousins, etc. But so as far as I know, there's 2 main companies that sell high-quality archival supplies, and that's a company called Gaylord and another company called Hollinger. And we ordered boxes from Hollinger. We ordered boxes and folders. Holllinger. Yeah, Hollinger Archival Supplies. And all their stuff is great. They have things for so many different occasions, different size box, containers for folders, for books, anything you might think of, they have. It's actually really enjoyable to go on the site, browse it, and just see the breadth of archival supplies that exists, because I can't even name it in my head, and they have just so much. And, but even more than that, you don't always need to purchase new materials. Sometimes a good first step is assessing how the materials in your home are preserved in their current containers. So make sure that nothing is bent, make sure that the room that they're stored in is at a cool enough temperature so they don't get dry and brittle or too moist and start to warp and bend. So I would say take that first step and make sure the materials are nicely preserved with what you already have.
I will also just say that Honger's materials cost a bit in shipping, so if you do decide to go with buying that stuff, maybe consider talking to other people that want to do it with you, because we spent a lot of money on folders and boxes.
Anybody else?
I was curious your perception of this community in place before the project and sort of what you learned over the course of the project.
I don't think the four of us knew much about Chapel of the Cross, but I will say one of, I think, the things I enjoyed the most was like just looking at pictures and learning about the history of the community. That bingo that Jacob showed was actually really, really fun to look at. A lot of the mission trips, like seeing the youth, seeing how much fun they had was really interesting to us. So yeah, I will say we've learned a lot. Maddie?
I think I'll be thinking about Polly Murray forever. And learning about them was incredible. Learning how important that was to the community was amazing. And learning a lot about like the civil rights work that the church has done was incredible to get to learn about. I just don't think I had thought that much about it before, and I'll be thinking about it forever.
Yeah, I did not know anything about Chapel of the Cross. What I knew was from walking and driving past and saying, that's a beautiful church. Like Isabella, there's so much joy in the archive, a lot of creations that have been from children, teenagers. I think that's really special, and I think that's not what people think about when they think about an archive, which is why we're talking about it, because it's not for academic researchers from UNC, it's for the community, it's for people who are curious about history.
Anybody else? Yeah, yes. This is great.
So thanks, y'all. We really appreciate it. And this isn't really a threat, but what if we discover things at home that we might want to inflict on the future archivists of the Chapel of the Cross?
So yeah, Michael Hardy is eager. He is an eager man, and he is excited. He's already had people write. Now, we have some files from people, and some also in the Wilson Library, vestry members, their notes about vestry meetings, different things. And so Michael is wide open to submissions. So you would email him at archives@thechapelofthecross.org. And I think as he gets into it, he's going to develop what are the criteria. But I think right now he just wants to hear from people, so he's excited about it. And I think that, there's the kind of parish record, and then there's people's impressions of the parish record contemporaneous to that. And I think that is a really valuable resource. And that's why, again, oral history. We have great oral history from the 1980s from people who are around the 40s, 50s. So that's great. So we're trying to make one for now, where people are looking back at 80s, 90s, 70s, and so forth. Yes.
Thank you again for doing this. I'm just curious, what did you guys like best about this project?
I think
Probably not.
No, we didn't know what we were getting into. I found it, okay, so in the program for master's projects, there were about 25. And all of us chose this one. We wanted this one. And for me, I loved the idea of the freedom of starting essentially from scratch with an archive, because a lot of archives, they're already well made, they're established, and you might do one little small task for 8 months. We got to do everything. And that is so important for us as incoming professionals going into libraries and archives, that we have experience with managing a budget, describing materials, rehousing materials, all these things. So that's my perspective.
I think I have to agree with Jacob. Our master's program is wonderful, but there is not much practical experience to be gained in it. It's mostly theory. So I really valued coming here to apply everything I've learned to a practical environment, and to get to process these materials, and again, look at the history of the community and learn more about it, and just see some really silly and fun stuff at times, but also more important stuff like Pauli Murray. It's been great.
We really have time for one more, and then I'd like to have people talk more with our interns if there's any more questions. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't think I had particularly much to add because I don't think I had. You're fine. I don't know if I can say that I had a specific favorite part because it was great. I think like just to echo Isabella and Jacob, getting to just learn so much more about the community in itself is wonderful. I love finding little challenges. So getting into the preservation concerns was really exciting. Obviously, you don't ever want to see things that are not well preserved, but to get to find them and to get to figure out how to preserve them was a joy. And just the processing has been so much fun, looking through all the different records, all the different photos. It's all been really lovely.
I'm sorry, that's the danger of the 2-mic system. All right, if we have time for like one more, and then I'd love for people to come talk at the tables and get some stuff. I'll tell you these giant prints are William Meade Prince. He was the son of a rector. He wrote The Southern Part of Heaven, professional illustrator, these giant chapel drawings, so up for grabs.
Thank you for everything that you've done. I have to ask, what were your favorite anachronisms that you found?
You mean like in the original finding aid? Let's see. Define anachronism.
That was a really good definition, by the way. Thank you.
Anything pop out? Oh.
Yeah, well, I have there've been a few things that have made me laugh. There were these little, I think like dinner invite cards, I think from the 90s, and it had something that went like, it was a New Year's dinner invite card, and it went something like, have dinner or celebrate the New Year at 6:30 p.m. like a normal person, like not going to celebrate it at midnight. I don't know, I thought that was funny. We've also found, like Maddie's been mentioning, stuff in frames. When we took some frames apart, we found like the funny inserts that you get when you buy frames at the store, and they were just so 2000s, like just a woman and a man like on a beach in very 2000s clothing. I don't know, I found that funny. Maddie, did you? Anything come to mind?
I know that there are plenty of things that have made us laugh, and none of them are coming to mind immediately.
The cursive is a whole thing. If anyone can read a cursive from 1895, please go upstairs and help.
Immediately.
But yeah, there's just so many. If we took the time to sit down and read some of this stuff, we would be caught up for days on end. There's just so many materials, and they're all so interesting. Yeah.
I would just add one thing. When we were looking up all the department or the ABC cell chairs for the 60th anniversary, a big resource for finding them was on newspapers.com. I would look through like the Chapel Hill Weekly or Chapel Hill News, but it never had the woman's first name. It was just Mrs. Man's name. And so you really had to go back through our archives, and luckily the Episcopal Church women, the ECW, which was quite the block of power, they recorded all the first names, so you could find them all in there, and it was great. All right, I would love for you all to give one more round of applause to our wonderful interns. Can come grab some materials over here, take home, and come talk to them over here and check out the stuff. Thank you all.